Well, hello once again. This is me. I wanted to bring up one more topic, and then I'm going to be done for this weekend, and you all don't have to deal with me. But I was watching WWE 24/7 and that fantastic Legends of Wrestling show that they do a couple times a year. They don't do it often, but they do it a couple times a year. And this episode they brought up the most significant moments in wrestling history. And this is a very interesting topic because there have been a lot of moments. There have been tons of moments in wrestling history. And I'll give you some of my thoughts. I'll give you what I feel are some of the most significant moments in wrestling history. I don't have a list. I don't have like a top 5 or a top 10, so I'm not going to be worried about it. One that comes to my mind right off the bat is when Stone Cold Steve Austin stunned Vince McMahon in Madison Square Garden. Because to me, I observe this now, older, wiser, looking back at the history of, the Monday Night Wars and wrestling in general. But to me, that's the one moment that changed everything around for WWE, in my opinion. Because, for years, my generation grew up with Vince McMahon as the announcer. We didn't know at the time that he was the owner. We didn't know about this kind of stuff. But then, piece by piece, it started coming out. And Steve Austin, he was making his move, and he was stunning all these people. And to do it to Vince McMahon, to stun Vince McMahon is one thing. But to do it in Madison Square Garden, to do it in the biggest arena in the world, that made it that special. And the crowd reaction is absolutely phenomenal. It's off the hook. I mean, you can't script that kind of moment. You really can't. And I will always defend that one moment changed the entire Monday Night Wars, side. Because when Austin did that, if you think about it, the WWE product was starting to get better, and the last days of WCW as the top product was almost done, and it started to go down and down and down. Meanwhile, WWE started to go up and up and up. But if that one moment never happens, and if that one moment in the one building where just about history's been made all the time, I don't think it would have been as successful as it would have been. A couple other moments I'm thinking of: the first Starrcade, the first WrestleMania. Those were gambles, especially the first WrestleMania. Vince, who had not even bought the company from his dad for 5 years, he hadn't even had the company for 5 years, rolled the dice. We all know the story. Put all the chips into this one event, into the first WrestleMania. He put it all in there. If it didn't work 20 plus years ago today, or 20 years after that event, we would not be talking about we would not be talking about WrestleMania. We would not be saying how every year it's the biggest event in wrestling. We really would not. And for Vince, and once again, it goes back to Madison Square Garden. Right time, right place. And I do believe that Vince, even though he may be sometimes an evil SOB, may be the greatest promoter in the history of wrestling, period. And with the first Starrcade, because, it was still in the days of the territories. You had Florida, you had the Midwest, St. Louis, Kansas City, world class, Mid-South. And the story is there was a bidding war for the right to host the Ric Flair Harley Race match. Jim Crockett Promotions won it. They named the event Starrcade, and they got this big card. And it has, two of the most legendary matches of all time. the steel cage match and the dog collar match with Greg Valentine and Roddy Piper. And that was a roll of the dice by Jim Crockett Jr. If he does not do this, plus the fact this is on closed circuit television, which has been unheard of, back then, or if it was heard of, it wasn't used very much. Once again, wrestling history would not be the same if it wasn't for that first Starrcade and that first WrestleMania. I'm going to give you two more that I'm thinking of, and then I'll be done with this video. One moment that really stands out to me as a significant moment in wrestling history is Kenta Kobashi's return. And I will explain. Because this is a guy who had kidney cancer, was not sure if he was going to ever wrestle again. They weren't even sure if he was going to live. He has this, surgery, major surgery. The entire press of Japan waiting on the news. All the fans of Japan are waiting. And he's fine. It takes him a year and a half to come back. And just for him to come back the way he did is such an emotional moment. And if you haven't seen it, you have to really watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. It's to the point where the commentator cries. The commentator cries, when Kobashi returns. That is how emotional of a moment it is. That's how gripping it is. And you really got to watch it. It's fantastic. And finally, obviously, WWE buying WCW. It is a significant moment in history because, number one, it ended the Monday Night Wars, and number two, it made it to where WWE was and still is the only place where you can make big-time money. And, ever since they bought WCW back in March 01, there has not been a clear-cut number 2 promotion. And I'm sure some of you are screaming at me, TNA. But what has TNA done major to make them the number 2 promotion? Yes, they've had Christian Cage. Yes, they got Kurt Angle. Yes, they got Mick Foley. Yes, they got national TV time slots. They did this and they did that. But with TNA, when they're at the cusp of making a very big move, they take 3 steps back. And, that's why WWE is still number 1. And it will probably always be number 1 until some other promotion comes in with a bunch of money, great talent, and can compete with WWE. And some people probably feel that when Vince bought his competition, that it ended any type of struggle, wars that he had. And it's true. It's true. It's unfortunate, but it's true. But those are some of my opinion significant moments in wrestling history.